I want you to imagine a story with me. Close your eyes if it helps. See a little girl running down the beach. I'm about 7 or 8, fairly long, dirty blonde hair, pail and shovel in hand. The wind is blowing, the waves are crashing. I want you to see this image. Really hold it in your mind. Feel it. Now I want you to completely black it out. That is life with aphantasia. I'm here to inform you about a recent psychological and neurological discovery called aphantasia. Since it is a more recent discovery, some of you may not even know what it is. You may have never heard this word before. Others of you may keep up to date with the most recent psych and neurology news. You may know a lot about it. And I'm here today to inform you about my personal life and experience with it, and hope that should gives you some insight into what life with aphantasia is like. I personally live with aphantasia, and I have my whole life. But I also did research in the CWI library and with journals to really understand this diagnosis and what it means. So today I'm going to discuss to you what aphantasia is, my personal life experiences with it, and how some inspirational people have overcome it in their areas. Let's start with defining what aphantasia is. It's commonly defined in layman terms as a blind mind's eye. But what is the mind's eye? Page G at datadriveninvestor.com said, it's actually the place in your head where images are recalled and created. Many of you fall in this area of the scale, where you can see pictures in your mind. Aphantasiacs, or aphants, lie right here. There is nothing but blackness in our mind when we try to see a picture. The psychology behind aphantasia started to be discovered in 1973 by David F. Marks. He published in the British Journal of Psychology, Last Access Today, the Vividness of Visual Imagery Questionnaire, or VVIQ. It was used for studying individual experiences in mental imagery. He wanted to see how different people described the different pictures they saw in their head. The neurology behind aphantasia was discovered officially in 2015 by Dr. Adam Zeman, and in 2018 he participated in a study called The Neural Correlates of Visual Imagery Vividness, an fMRI study and literature review, accessed through PubMed.gov today. In this study, he said that they discovered the parts of the brain that are different in people who can see pictures and who can't. Now, obviously, this is in varying degrees of people in this end of the scale, but people over here and people over here are wildly different. Mostly what this affects is not just images that we see or make in our head, but it also affects our memory recall. We use words or structure pictures in our mind with words, even though they're not actually images. Alan Kendall wrote a book called Aphantasia Experiences, Perceptions, and Insights, and Goodreads.com, Last Access Today, has a quote by him that says, I describe it thus. Think about walking through your house in the middle of the night when all the lights are out. You roughly know where everything is because you are familiar with the space, even if you can't see it. This is my mind and memories. Darkness, but awareness of the space I am or was in. This affects people differently in varying degrees. One person may be able to access memories with words, but they can actually feel feelings on this, like touch, or they can smell the real smells, or hear actual sounds. Others, like me, cannot. We are completely aphantasic. When we try and recall sounds or memories, they are just words. And it makes it hard to recall emotions of past events too. Dr. Sutcliffe, a therapist, wrote to a Therapy Today in 2019, Last Access Today, about an individual she was studying and helping. She said, he can only describe his childhood from the perspective of his adult mind, and therefore his reactions to early childhood experiences are not available to him. So even though we know what happened, we cannot associate feelings with it. So who does this affect? The University of Exeter published on their website, Last Access Today, in a different article, said that the 20th century survey suggested that this may be true of 2.5% of the population. That means 1 in 50. If you were to put the average class of 25 to 30 students with another class average of 25 to 30 students, you would get 50 to 60 students, and one of them would be an aphant. Now that you have a clearer understanding of what aphantasia is, I'm going to give you a more personal look at how I've lived with aphantasia. I didn't know that I was different when I was young, and art projects and therapy sessions were very frustrating to me, especially when I would be told to just put what I saw in my head on the paper, or I would be told to go to a safe place or imagine myself on a beach to relax, because when I closed my eyes, there was nothing but darkness. I didn't know that I was different until I discovered a YouTube video by a YouTuber named Amy Right Meow, and this was the thumbnail that caught my attention. She said, the title is, I have aphantasia and you might too without even realizing it. She discussed what aphantasia is, how her experiences that had been very similar to mine, what she had gone through, and she discussed how it had affected her art and her work. I got really excited as I watched the video because I finally had a realization that I was different. I'd never really understood that people could see images in their minds, and now I did. And now I knew that I was different and that I couldn't, and that there was a reason for this. And I learned that the way I visualize through words is different. The best way I can describe it is like reading a book. There's just words and no pictures. It's a blackness full of words. I regularly tend to overwrite when I'm writing because I want to describe what I think something should look like, even though I can't see it in my head. And some of you may be wondering, does this affect dreaming? And it does not. I dream very vividly. I dream in insane pictures. I can feel what's happening. Now that you have a clear picture of what aphantasia was like, I'd like to discuss some inspirational people who overcome what can be deemed as a possible obstacle in life. First off is Amy Right Now, the YouTuber I just discussed. She's a professional visual developer, an artist, and a 2D animator, and she has learned how to use her aphantasia to augment her work rather than distract from her work. She learned how to use other tools at her disposal to really bring her artwork to life. Another is John Somerset, a photographer who has a blog. He posted an article on photographyinsider.info last Access Today where he discussed how he used to have aphantasia, and he used a technique called image streaming to change it. He used 10 minutes every day, and after a month he saw results. Lastly is Mark Lawrence, a fantasy novelist who is successful without seeing aphantasia as a defect or limiting. So, I have discussed with you today what aphantasia is, my personal life experience with it, and shared some inspirational people who've overcome it. Amy, an artist on YouTube, John Somerset, the photographer, Mark Lawrence, a fantasy novelist, ex-Pixar chief Ed Catmull, Mozilla's co-founder Blake Ross, and Alan Kendall, an author. What do these people have in common? They are all people who have aphantasia and still have overcome it. Alan Kendall, in his book, also said, I know what a beach looks like, and I can describe it, but no picture appears.